Hi, in this tutorial I will give an overview of Azure DevOps. In this tutorial I will cover the following. First, a short introduction to Azure DevOps. What is Azure DevOps? What can you use it for? How do you get access to it? Etc. Then, getting started with Azure DevOps, we start by creating and configure a new development project. Then we will use the Agile and Scrum features in Azure DevOps. Then we will use the source code control features with Azure DevOps. And then finally we will use the bug tracking and bug monitoring feature within Azure DevOps. Then let's start with a short introduction to Azure DevOps. So Azure DevOps is a software engineering tool typically used by developers and programmers that are developing some kind of software. You can use Azure DevOps for planning, collaboration, source code control, bug tracking, etc. It's a tool developed by Microsoft. You get access to the tool by open your web browser and enter this URL dev.azure.com. Then you are able to create an account and log into the system. You can use Azure DevOps for free if you are 5 developers or less, and also it's free for additional stakeholders. If you are more than 5 developers, you typically need to pay for it. So here's the some of the main features within Azure DevOps. In addition, you can use it within your web browser, but it's also integrated with the Visual Studio, which is the main development tool from Microsoft. It has different Agile or Scrum tools. You can create a product backlog, sprint backlog, task board. You can use it for source code control, and then typically you use and integrate it with the Visual Studio, so you can check in, check out your code directly from the Visual Studio environment. You can also use it for bug reporting and bug tracking and bug monitoring. It also has lots of other features that are useful in software engineering or in development and programming in general, but those features will not be covered in this tutorial. So then let's start with Azure DevOps. So typically the first thing you need to do is to create an account and log in to the web page. Then next you need to start and create a new project that you can use in your development. So let's go to the web page here and start creating and configure a new project that you can use in your development. So then I have opened my web browser. I enter the address dev.azure.com and just hit enter, and then you get into the start page and the information page for this Azure DevOps tool. Then you can start for free. You can click on this link, and then typically you need to create a new account, Microsoft account, etc., and then you're ready to start using the system. I'm already created an account and I'm logged into the system, so this will be the startup page for the Azure DevOps system. So then here on the left you typically need to create a new organization, so you just click on this link and then just continue here. And then you need to enter a proper name for your project, for your organization. So then this is the main address, and then here you type the name of your organization. It could be your company name. It could be if you're a student, your student number. It could be just your name or whatever, depending on what kind of user you are. And then when you have created the organization, it will appear here on the left side. So this is my organization. You can create multiple organizations, but I have created an organization called UCN22. That's just a dummy name. and when you click on the organization, you will get a list of the projects within that organization. I have here one project called My Project 1, but let's create a new project from scratch within this organization. So then I just click here on New Project. And then this window pops up, create new project. Typically you need to at least create a project name. So then I just create a dummy name, My Project 2. Of course you should create a more meaningful name for your project, but this project is just for demonstration purpose. And of course you should write a meaningful description for your project. And then you can select between public and private. Typically you want to have your project private, where only you and the members that you invite to the project can have access. So I will select private in my example, and then here, note, you have some more options here under advanced. So just click on this one, and then you get some options here. You can select different types of version control. You can choose between using Git or the built-in system called Team Foundation Version Control. I will use the built-in one, Team Foundation Version Control. So I select this one here under advanced, and also you have some different work item processes. You can choose between basic, agile, etc. But since I will focus on using Scrum in this tutorial, I will select the Scrum work item process. So then please select a proper name, proper description, select either public or private. Typically you want to have it private, and then click on advanced. Make sure to select a version control system. I will choose and use Team Foundation Version Control in this tutorial, and the work item process I will choose and use Scrum. So then I just click create in order to create the new project for your software project. So then just click create, and then it will take some time before it's ready. So now my new project is ready and up and running. So this is the name of my project, My Project 2. Of course you should use a more meaningful name. Here you can, if you haven't added a project description, you have a new opportunity to add a meaningful project description here. But typically the next now is to invite members to your project. So then I just click here on invite. Then you can search for members that you should include in your project, or enter the email address, and then they will pop up in the list here, and then you can click add in order to add those persons to your project. I will not add any new members now, so I'm the only member of the project, but if you have invited new members, they will pop up here in the members list. Next, you typically want to go to and select this one, project settings. Then you can set up some details regarding your project. If you want to change the name of the project, you can change it here, also here, add or change the description, etc. And also you can change the visibility, private or public. You can add administrators to the project. Typically, when you create a new project, you will be the main administrator, but you can add more administrators here. Here you can also show or hide some features that you can use within your project. Depending on your project and your needs, you can either show or hide them by clicking on these buttons. Typically, I will not use some of them. I will not use this feature in this tutorial. I will not use this feature. I will use the boards feature and the repos feature. I will not use these three features. So then here on the left side here, you see how I have all the features here that you can click on the different features, but when you turn those to off, they will be removed in your project. So these will not be available, but if you need these features later, then you can just go back to the project settings and then turn them back on. So then I just click here to go back to the main project page, and then you see the features that I was hiding, these pipelines, test plans, etc. has been removed. So now I have only this overview available, boards and repos, or short for repositories. So basically now we are ready to start using this Azure DevOps tool for your software development project. Next, let's dig into some Agile or Scrum features in Azure DevOps. So we will start with the so-called product backlog, which you find on the left side in your project here. Select the boards and then select the backlogs, and then you have your product backlog here, and then you can just click here, new work item, in order to create so-called product backlog items. So basically the product backlog in Scrum is simply a list of all things that needs to be done within your project, and typically it replaces the traditional requirements specification that you typically create in a software engineering project. So basically the product backlog is a list of all the requirements for a given software system that you are going to create. So let's see how we can create some elements or product backlog items in the product backlog in this Azure DevOps tool. So now I'm back in Azure DevOps on my project that we just created. So then I just go to, on the left side here, select boards, and then backlogs, and then of course now the product backlog is empty, but let's start creating some product backlog items, which is basically just features or requirements that your software should consist of. So then I just click here, new work item, and then the product backlog here. So there's a work item called product backlog item. So that's basically just one element in your product backlog. So then I just start typing something here. Product backlog item could be, so typically these are features or requirements that you need to create in part of your software project. So then let's assume that you are going to create a patient system. So then one product backlog item could be send patient data to doctor or something. This is just some dummy examples. Then I just click enter, and then you see this product backlog item has been added to the product backlog list. Then I can create a new one, search for patient data, could be another product backlog item. So I just click enter or just click this button. So now I have two elements in the product backlog. I can create another one, show patient information, click enter, and then now you see I have three elements in the product backlog. You can also change the order, but typically this list is in prioritized order, so the element on top should have the higher priority, and the element in the bottom should have the lowest priority. So then you typically enter all your requirements to the system that you're going to create as so-called product backlog items, and then this list will be the entire requirement list of the system that you're going to create. You also have other types of work items in Azure DevOps. So now so far we have used this product backlog item, which is just a list of requirements for your software that you're going to create, but typically that list can be very long, and you could have several hundred product backlog items in your product backlog, so it could be very long. So typically you could use another work item called feature in order to group product backlog items that are belonging to each other. So then you can use this feature in order to make a hierarchy of features on top, and then each feature could consist of one or more product backlog items. And then typically you need to break all the product backlog items into tasks. So typically each product backlog item needs to be broken into a set of tasks, and a task is something that you should be done by the developer. So typically a stakeholder can create, or a customer can create the product backlog item or the product backlog list, because that's are the requirements for the system. But the tasks are typically created by the developer. So when a developer are going to implement a product backlog item into the software, that developer typically break that product backlog item into a set of tasks. And so the tasks are more detailed. It could be specific things that a developer needs to do in the programming environment that he is using. It could be creating a new web page. It could be creating a new class, creating a new database table, etc. So then typically you end up with a structure like this. You have multiple features, feature X, feature Y, etc. And then each feature typically then consists of one or more product backlog item. I have just call them product backlog item A, product backlog item B for feature X, and for feature Y I have a product backlog item C. And then each product backlog item can be broken into multiple tasks, and then you have task A1, task A2 for product backlog item A, and the same for B, etc. So then by using these features, it makes it easier to structure all the product backlog items, because you can have many product backlog items in the product backlog. And also each product backlog item needs to be broken into one or more tasks that needs to be done by the developer in order to fulfill that specific product backlog item. So then let's start to create some examples of these different work items, namely the product backlog item. We have 3 of those now, and let's create some features and some tasks. So then we can go to select here, work items. So I select work items here, and then you will have a list here of all your work items in your project. So far we have created 3 product backlog items, which is just one type of work item. But now let's create some features which we can use to group the product backlog items into a structure. So then let's say we have we're going to create a web module. So then I can just call it so now I selected new feature, then I just type a name, web module or something, and click save. Go back to do the work items, and then you see I have 3 product backlog items and 1 feature called web module. Let's create a new feature. Let's have a feature for storage information. Of course, these are just the domain names, and then click save. And then now I have 2 features and 3 product backlog items. So then next would be to group these items or put them into one of these features. So then I can just drag and drop. So I go back to the backlogs here. So this is my product backlog. So I have my 3 product backlog items here, and I can go here on the menu, select this option, view options, and then I can turn on mapping, and then you see here I have my product backlog items, and here I have my features, and then you can, as I said here, just drag and drop work items to map them to a specific feature. So then assuming this show patient information should be mapped to the web module like this, send patient data to doctor and map it to the web module, and then search patient data, also map it to the web module like this. I can create a new work item of a new product backlog item, store data to database, and then I can map this product backlog item to the storage information like this. So basically now I have different product backlog items and some features, and let's see the relationship between them by clicking here on the menu, these view options. So then I can turn this on, parents, turn it on, and then you see I have the features there, and then you see those 3 product backlog items are linked to that feature, and that specific product backlog item are linked to that feature. And then you can easily hide the product backlog items that are part of a specific feature. You can click on the plus and minus here to either hide or show information below a specific feature. You can also click here on the plus in order to add a specific task for that specific product backlog item. So let's assume that the developer now are going to develop feature for this show patient information. Then he just need to click here on the plus in order to add a specific task, and it could be create a web API or something, save and close, and then you see that specific task has been created below that specific product backlog item that is part of this feature. Let's create a new task for this specific product backlog item. Create class. Yeah, so now you see that product backlog item has 2 specific tasks that needs to be done by the developer in order to fulfill that product backlog item. You can do the same for some of the others. Send patient data to doctor. Then typically the developer needs to create a web form. So then this web form has been created under this specific product backlog item. Let's create a new one. Also here he needs to create a method or whatever. So now typically you see this hierarchy of work item types. You have on top you have features, which is web module and storage information, and below each feature you have one or more product backlog items, which is this blue one, show patient information, send patient to doctor, store data to database, etc. And below each of those product backlog items or the requirements, you need to create one or more tasks. And typically for each of the tasks you need to specify a person that are going to actually do this specific task. So here in the detail information for that specific task, you can assign it to a specific person here. You can set remaining work. Let's assuming this specific task needs to be, so here you typically specify a time in hours. So typically it should be between 1 and 8 hours. So then let's assume this create a web app API takes 8 hours. Then I just save and close, and then I can do the same for the others. I assign it to a specific person. remaining work, this create class, it takes 1 hour, etc. So basically this is how you create the product backlog items, the features and the tasks that is beneath each of the product backlog items. So typically the next thing you need to do in this Azure DevOps tool is to start working on a specific sprint. And a sprint is a so-called iteration. It's a specific time period, typically 2 to 4 weeks, where you select some of the product backlog items that you're going to work with, and then specify tasks for each of those work items, which consists the work that you're going to do in that specific sprint or iteration. And then in order to do that, you typically use the task board in Azure DevOps. So a task board in Azure DevOps or in Scrum in general has 3 columns, as you just see an illustration of here. It has a column called to do, consisting of all the tasks that you're going to do in that specific sprint or iteration. And then typically you need to add, assuming you are working with sprints that have the period of 2 weeks, then you need to add tasks that fulfill the workload of 2 weeks in this to-do column. And then when you start working on a sprint, you just select one of the tasks, put it into in progress column. So these are the specific tasks that you are working on in that specific sprint at that specific moment. And when you are finished with a specific task, you just put it into the next column. It's called done. So here are the tasks that are going to be done. Here are the tasks that you or one of your team members are working on at the moment. And here are all the tasks that you have finished within that sprint so far. So hopefully all the items or tasks that you have in the to-do column should be put into the done when the sprint is finished. So here you just see a demo example. So here in the Azure DevOps you select sprints, and then you just add tasks to the to-do column in the beginning of the sprint, and then when you start working on the sprint you just select one task at a time, put it in progress, and then when you are finished with it, put it in the done. And then until the sprint is finished, hopefully all the tasks have been moved from to do to the done column. So let's go into the Azure DevOps and create some items in the sprint or in the task board feature in Azure DevOps. So then let's start using the task board within this Azure DevOps tool. So here you see the list of all the if you go here under boards, and the boards or the backlogs. So here you have the backlog items. You have the, if I click on plus here, you have the features, the product backlog items beneath that feature, and you have your specific task that belongs to a specific product backlog item. Then you typically next go to the sprints in order to start using this task board. And so far the task board is empty, and then here you can select the sprint that you are working on. So typically you specify a from to date for each of the sprints, and then automatically it selects the sprint that you are working on at the moment, which is now sprint number 1. And then you can start either creating new tasks that you are going to do in that specific sprint, either here in the sprints, or if you go back to the backlog, select a specific task, open it, and then select iteration here. So then just select sprint 1, save. Same for this one, sprint 1, save. These are not should not be done in sprint 1, so I just leave those and go back to the sprints. And now you see in the to-do list I have 2 tasks that should be done within this sprint, namely create web API and create class under this show patient information product backlog item. So assuming I'm going to store also for this product backlog items, store data to database, and then I just right click here or click on this this plus sign, new item. Then I can create a specific task. Let's say that could be create a SQL server, create SQL server, hit enter, and now you see a new task has been created below that specific product backlog item. And I also can assign it to a person. I can also click here on these 3 dots and open that specific task. I can specific remaining work. Let's say that this takes 2 hours. Click save and close, and then you see for each of the tasks you see the person that should be responsible for that task and number of hours it takes to do that specific task. I can do the same for some of the other product backlog item here. Send patient data to doctor. Then I could create a new task for that. Create GUI. Then I can assign it to a person. I can click on these 3 dots. Remaining work, let's say 4 hours. Click save and close. So now I have some tasks that I am going to do in this specific sprint. So now assume that the sprint is starting. So then I want to start creating the SQL Server database. So then I just move it to the next column in progress. So here to do, here are all the tasks that are going to be done but has not started yet. Here are the tasks that you or other team members are working on at the moment. And then when you are finished with a specific task, you just drag it to the next column, which is done. So basically this is how we work within a specific sprint. And a sprint is typically between 2 and 4 weeks. You just, in the beginning of the sprint, you select all the tasks that you are going to do or your team are going to solve or develop in that specific period. Then you start working on those tasks by moving them from to do to in progress, and when you're finished you just put it in the done column like this. So basically this is the task board in the Azure DevOps tool. So let's see how we can use the source code control features within Azure DevOps. So typically you can add or open files, create folders, insert files directly from the web page, but typically this feature on the web page of Azure DevOps has limited features within the web browser. So typically you want to use Visual Studio and connect to that specific repository, and then you can more easily create proper folder and a proper folder structure for your work. Either it's documents, code files, database files, whatever. And then you can also easily use Visual Studio to check in and check out your code into the repository. So let's see how we can use Visual Studio to handle this feature. So then I have opened my Visual Studio. So then this is the starter window in Visual Studio. You can either start creating a new project or just continue without code in order to just open Visual Studio. And then here you typically go to View, select Team Explorer. I guess you already are familiar with the Solution Explorer, which is part of the project that you create in Visual Studio, but when using Azure DevOps and the source control feature, you also need to use the Team Explorer. So when you find a Team Explorer, by default it's not visible, so then you just go to View and select Team Explorer, and then it shows up here side by side with the Solution Explorer. And then the first thing you need to do is to connect to your specific project. Then you have this little icon, Manage Connections. Click on this one and connect to project, and then this pops up. Here is my user that I'm using, and here is my Azure DevOps system, and then you see this USN 22 is my organization, so you can have multiple organization here, and beneath a specific organization you can have one or more projects. Under this organization I have two projects, one called My Project 1, which I have created earlier, and the new one which we created together, this My Project 2. So then I just select Connect in order to connect and use that specific project within Visual Studio. So then I just take some time, and now it should be up and running. And then also I can just so the next thing to do now is to open something called the Source Control Explorer. So I just find it here in the list, click on it in order to open it, and then it takes some time to initialize. Then here on the left side I should have my organizations and my projects. So then I have my organization USN22 and My Project 1, and the project we created together, My Project 2. So then I just select My Project 2. Then next we need to map it to a local path. Then I just go into my web browser, my local file explorer. I just open a folder where I'm going to store all my source code. So I just created a temp folder. I just create a subfolder here called software or whatever. Use a meaningful name. So then below this folder I'm going to create different types of folders. I'm going to store all my source code, etc. So this is the local mapping of the source code that are actually stored in the cloud in this Azure DevOps platform. So now this is just will be a local copy that I can work with when creating or developing my applications. So then I just go here to local path, not mapped, click on it. Open it, and then the server folder is My Project 2, and then local folder, I just click on these three dots. Select on my hard drive, I had a temporary folder and this software folder. Of course, you can name your folder or put it wherever you like on your hard drive. And click OK. So now my project 2 will be located below this software folder. And click just map. So new items will not newly mapped items will not be downloaded until you execute a get, because so far we haven't created any folders or any files. So do you want to get my project now? I click yes or no. It doesn't matter because we haven't created anything yet, but I just click yes. But so far, if I go to now my local folder temp software, a new subfolder has been created, which is the same name of my project 2. And then by default it just creates a hidden folder here that you shouldn't touch, so just leave it. Now the next now is to create some subfolders here. You could have a subfolder for different applications, a subfolder for documents, a subfolder for database resources, whatever. So then I just go back to the source control explorer here in Visual Studio. I can then go next, and also here on the local path you see it has been mapped to that specific folder on your hard drive. I can also click on it in order to open that local folder. So the first thing we should do is to create a proper folder structure. So I just right click here, select new folder. So assume I want to have a subfolder for my source code or my development, my application that I'm going to create. So then I can have a subfolder called development. I can create a new folder. I could have a folder for documentation. I can have a new folder for, let's say, database, like this. So now you see that this has this small green plus sign here, and also they have been created here locally. But if I go to the web page, go here under repositories or repos on the web page of this Azure DevOps project, then you see there's nothing here, because so far these folders only exist on my local hard drive, so they hasn't been added to the source code control yet. So the next step now is just to click here on my project, right click, and check in pending changes. I select this option, and then here on the right side it's happening something, pending changes. Click on the check-in button, continue to check in these 3 items, which is these 3 folders. Yes, and now you see this green plus sign has been disappeared. This means that these 3 no folders has been added to the repository. So if I go back to the web page, click on repos, and you see these 3 folders has been added to the source code control in my Azure DevOps project. So the next thing now is to create, I can add documents or upload documents, I can add source code, etc. So let's start by creating or adding some documents under the documentation folder. So then here on my file explorer, I'm just having here I have just 2 PDF files I want to put into the source code control. So I just copy them into the documentation folder like this. But so far, if I go to the web page, select the documentation, there are no documents in this folder, so I need to add them to the source code. So then I just double click on the documentation folder, right click, add items to folder, then I select those 2 which I put into the same folder, click next and finish. And the same here, check in. Do you want to continue checking these 2 items, which is these 2 files? Yes. And then you see the plus symbol or icon has been disappearing. Go back to the web page, click on the documentation folder, like this, and then you see those two PDF files has now been added to the source code control. In order to change these files, I can right click on them and then check out for edit. So now if this would be a Word file or whatever, then I can change the Word file or whatever, what file is it is, do the changes, and then when I have done the necessary changes, I just right click on the same document, check in pending changes in order to check in that updated document. So that's how you create folders, upload documents, and then you can right click, check out, check in these files to the central repository in Azure DevOps. So now next, let's see how we can add some source code to do the source code control in our Azure DevOps project. So then I just select file here, a new project, assuming I'm going to create a ordinary Windows Form desktop application. I just select Windows Forms app, click next, select a proper name for it. I just leave it WinForms app 1. Of course, you should have a better name for your application. Here on the location, I just select the location under temp software on my project 2, and I want to put that specific application in the development folder. So then I select the development folder, click select folder. So now I just double check if my project name is correct, my location is correct, my solution name is correct, etc. It seems to be okay, especially this location folder. I click next in order to create that specific application. And now my application should be created automatically by Visual Studio. So now the application has been created. So I just open the Solution Explorer. So I have the Solution Explorer and the Team Explorer. So the Solution Explorer, here you see my different files for that specific application. I can of course add new files, folders, etc. here in the Solution Explorer. I can start creating my application. Let's assume we need a button, a text box, etc. So this is my application. So the next now is to upload the source code to Azure DevOps. So the only thing you need to do is to click here under Solution, right click, and then add solution to source control. I just select this option. And now you see you have this same green plus signs here, meaning those files now will be uploaded to the Azure DevOps repository. So then you just go to the Team Explorer here and select check-in and check in these items, yes. And when it's finished, go back to the Solution Explorer, and then you see all the files has this small locker symbol. This means that these files has been uploaded to the repository. So let's go to the web page for the Azure DevOps project, select development, and then we see the WinForms app 1 has been uploaded, the solution, the project folder, and the project files. So all the files has been uploaded. You see the last change, who has uploaded the files, etc. And the next now is to, assuming you or another one in your team wants to change or update the code. So assume you want to add a new text box here. Then let's just drag in a new text box. And did you see what's happening here now? Automatically that specific file with the belonging subfiles was automatically checked out of the system. And you see that because they have this small red symbol, meaning that these files are now checked out, and then you are able to work on these specific files, do the necessary changes like this, and when you are satisfied, you are running and testing the application and make sure that everything works as expected. So make sure to test the application, and then when the application is working as expected, then you can check in these files either by clicking on the solution folder or a specific subfolder. Basically, if you want to check in all, so you can typically check out multiple files here in your solution. So if you want to check in all these files, just click on the main folder, the solution folder, right click and check in, and then click on this button, check in. Continue to check in these items, yes. Go back to the Solution Explorer, and then you see now the updated source code has been uploaded and checked into the repository that is part of the Azure DevOps project. So far we have been using Azure DevOps. We have been creating a new project for our development. We was setting up the project. We was adding some Agile or Scrum features using the product backlog item or the product backlog, and creating some product backlog items. We was creating some tasks, etc. We was also able to use the source control features. We was adding some documents, folders, and some source code to the Azure DevOps repository. And finally, now we should use Azure DevOps for bug tracking and bug monitoring. So let's see how we can use Azure DevOps for bug tracking. So in Azure DevOps we have different types of work items. So far we have used the product backlog item, we have used the feature in order to group the product backlog items, and also each product backlog item should have one or more tasks, which are specific tasks that needs to be done by the developer in order to fulfill the requirement in the product backlog item. But Azure DevOps has also other work items that you can use, and now since we are focused on bug reporting and bug tracking, we will use the bug work item. So we are back in my web browser and my Azure DevOps project, my project 2. So then I go to boards, select work items, and then you see the list of all the work items I have created so far. Specific task, which is this yellow one, the product backlog items, which is this blue one, and the purple one, the features. Then I just want to create or report a bug. Since I know how I started to develop my applications, you typically will find bugs in your application, so then you need to report them. So then I select new work item, select the bug, and then typically you need to enter a title, assuming the search is not working or something. So that's the title or the name of the bug. Then you can assign it to a specific person, assuming this, you know that these bugs belong to a specific developer. Then you can select the name of that person. Here in the list you can add different information that could be necessary in order to reproduce the bug and solve or remove the bug from the application. So then you have different fields that you can fill in here. You can, in addition to select a specific person, you can select priority, etc. But typically, at least you need to fill out a title. Search is not working, and then just click save. And then click back to work items, and then it pops up here in the work items list. So here, if I know we have created 4 different types of work item types. We have tasks, product backlog items, features, and then finally we have this bug. And then you see this red bug item indicating that this is a specific bug. So let's just create some more bugs. So the search button is not enabled or something. I click save. So now we have 2 bugs. I create one more. Web application is crashing during execution or something. I'll click save. So now we have created multiple bugs, but it's hard to find your bugs in that list of all the other work items. So then the next is to use a feature called queries. So then I shall select here queries. Queries is just a way to easily find your work items. So then I can start by creating a new query, and then you need to specify some criteria for the query. So work item type of so assuming I want to have a list that only showing all the bugs and not the other work item types. So work item type equals the bug, and then I remove this one. You can easily add more criteria here by clicking on this plus sign in order to make more advanced queries. But assuming I want to have a query showing all the work item types of type bug, like this. And typically next you want to save that query, so then save query and specify a name for it, all bugs or something, and then you can specify either my queries. If you put this query under my queries, it will be available only for you. If you put it in the share queries, that specific query will be available for all members of the project. I only want it to have to be visible for me, so then I put it into my queries. Click OK, and then when I click now under queries here, I can easily find my query. Click all bugs, and then you see I will get a list of all the bugs that are available in the system. So far I have created 3 different bugs. Search is not working, is assigned to me. Search button is not enabled, it's unsigned. Web application is crashing, is also unsigned. So let's create a new query where I only want to see the bugs that are assigned to me. Then new query, work item type equals to the bug. And then next here I select a new field. So I only want to see the bugs that are assigned to me. So then I select assign to equal to, and then I select my name. Or I can also, so then I just want to see all the bugs that are assigned to me. I click save. Then I can save it as my bugs, like this, in the folder my queries. Since this are my bugs, I only want to see that query and not others in the team. Click OK, and then if I go and click on queries, now I have this. If I click here under all, then you see now I have you are able to see all the queries I have created both my queries and shared queries. So first I created this one, all bugs, this assigned to me, followed my work has been created automatically by the system, but my bugs was the latest query I created. And now you see I only get this specific work item or bug that is belonging to me. So this is only the bugs that are assigned to me. So let's go back to the other query. It's all bugs. So assuming this search button is not enabled, I want to assign this one to me. Save. So now this one is assigned to me, this one is assigned to me, but this one is unsigned. So if I go back to my bugs, then you see 2 bugs now appear in the list here. This means that you can use these queries in order to specify different lists to make it easy to find just the work items that you want to find. Finally, let's also create a shared query. So then I create a new query, work item type of bug. I also here assigned to. And then instead of a specific name, I can use this variable @me. So this means when now I'm going to create a shared query, so this query will be available for all members of the team. Instead of specifying a specific name, I select this variable @me. That means when I'm using this query, it will show all the bugs that are assigned to me, but if another person in your team is using the same query, he will only see the bugs that are assigned to him. So when I now save this query, I can just call it bugs or whatever, and then I select shared queries, click OK. Now you see under all here I have this my queries and shared queries, and now if I click on bugs here, you see I will only get the bugs that are reported in the system that are assigned to me. But if another member of the team is using the same shared query, he will only get the bugs that are assigned to him. So by using this variable @me, you can easily make sure that the same query can be used by multiple members of the team like this. So that's all for now. So let's summarize. We started with an introduction to Azure DevOps. And Azure DevOps is a great tool for developers that are going to create a software application or a software system. And especially when multiple developers are creating a software system, then you can easily use Azure DevOps to share documents, share code, share the product backlog, create bugs and view bug list, etc. So basically that's all. So good luck with using the Azure DevOps and creating your software applications. Thank you and goodbye.